I've been told by atheists or members of other religions that, hey, you're only a Catholic because you grew up in the West and you're just ignorant of these other religions, and that's why you don't follow anything else other than Christianity. Ignore the fact that I was an atheist for 8 years, and during that time I did explore other religions like Buddhism and Islam. I read probably half of the Quran just to make my dad upset because he's a devout Christian, and I just thought that'd be funny. We'll just ignore that. We'll ignore the fact that I do know quite a bit about other religions. Today, what I want to do is actually research other religions and review them, so to speak. Now, I'm going to be respectful. Nobody's going to get upset. I'm not going to hurt anybody's feelings. There may be an apology video tomorrow, but for the most part, I'm going to try to be respectful. None of my intention with all of this is not to insult other religions, but to genuinely understand them, get to know them, and determine whether or not there's any validity to them. Maybe I'll be convinced, right? Maybe I'll be convinced that I've been wrong this whole time. So the first religion I really want to look into, because I've heard chatterings about it. Before I was even a Christian, I was hearing about this religion. This religion is the Bahai faith. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask ChatGPT about various religions and what they believe, why they believe what they believe, and we'll see what we come away with. So I'm going to ask it first about the Bahai faith. So what does the Bahai faith teach? Monotheistic. Okay, we're off to a good start. Here are some key teachings of the Bahai faith. Okay. Oneness of God. Baha'is believe in the existence of one God who is the source of all creation and the ultimate reality. Okay, I'm on board so far. Oneness of religion. They believe that all major religions are divine in origin and that they teach the same essential spiritual truths. You lost me. I'm out. This is, it's like the most annoying wishy-washy stuff that people say. It leaves an icky taste in my mouth. This can't be true, okay? Because if all major religions are divine in origin, then that means contradictory truths are all true at the same time. Because we have religions like monotheistic religions like Islam, Judaism, Christianity, and then we have polytheistic religions like Hinduism, we have paganism, we have witchcraft. All of these things teach very contradictory things, for primarily that either there is a God or there is no God or there are many gods. Those are all contradictory statements, and if all of those things are divinely revealed, whatever that divine source is not very reliable because it's giving us contradictory information. So no, not all major religions can be divine in origin. Oneness of humanity. Baha'is advocate for the unity of all races, nations, and religions. They believe that humanity is one single race and should strive for global unity and cooperation. I agree with that. Equality of genders. The Baha'i faith teaches the equality of men and women in all aspects of life, including social, spiritual, and economic. Okay, I'm on board. Elimination of prejudice. I'm down. Harmony of science and religion. Yeah, of course. By the way, thank you, Catholic Church, for the Big Bang Theory and for modern genetics. Thank you. You're welcome. Progressive revelation. Baha'is believe that God's guidance is revealed progressively through a series of divine messengers or prophets, including Abraham, Moses, Buddha, Jesus, Muhammad, and that person, however you pronounce that. Oh boy. So again, they teach contradicting things. Buddha and Jesus teach contradicting things. They might teach a very similar moral law, but the Buddha teaches, and Buddhism as a spirituality teaches, that you can achieve perfection by abandoning desire, and that you can do that. Now, Jesus teaches that you cannot achieve perfection in this life, and your faith in him is what will work towards your perfection in this life, but ultimately be reached in the next life in heaven. Also, Buddhism teaches reincarnation. Jesus never taught that. This might be my least favorite religion ever. It's trying to appeal to everybody. This is like that person who just wants to be everybody's best friend and so plays all sides and has no genuine self-expression or genuine self-identity or personal beliefs. It's just like, whatever you say, yeah, I agree with that. And then somebody says something contradictory and you're like, yeah, I agree with that too. No, stop. Stop trying to be everybody's friend. World peace. I like world peace. Advocate for the establishment of world peace through the elimination of prejudice, the promotion of justice, and the establishment of a global system of governance. I am not down with the global system of governance. I'm sorry. Global cooperation is great, but a one world government, come on now. Let's not do that. Let's not. Cool. So I'm going to go ahead and say no to that one. Let's move on to the next. So let's do Buddhism. Buddhism, founded by Siddhartha Gautama, commonly known as the Buddha, around the 6th century BCE in ancient India, is a spiritual tradition with a wide range of teachings. Here are some fundamental principles and teachings of Buddhism. The Four Noble Truths. The truth of suffering. Life is inherently unsatisfactory and filled with suffering. You know, I feel like not always, but there are times when I would agree with this. The truth of the cause of suffering. Attachment and desire lead to suffering. Okay, I guess that's true, but isn't it also worth suffering for the betterment of others at times? Like if my wife is in danger and I put myself in harm's way to protect her, which incurs some kind of suffering on me, that suffering is caused by my desire and my love for my wife, my attachment to my wife, and my desire to protect her. But is that bad always? I don't think so. The truth of the cessation of suffering. I'm gonna sneeze. Oh boy. All right. It is possible to overcome suffering by eliminating its causes. So eliminating attachment and desires. Okay. But I think we all agree some attachments and some desires are good to have and would be bad to detach from. Like if you see a loved one in danger, let's say they're drowning or something, it is your attachment to them that makes you desire to save them. That's a good thing, right? Are we supposed to separate from all attachment and desire? The truth of the path of cessation of suffering. Following the Eightfold Path leads to cessation of suffering. All right, what's the Eightfold Path? Let's see. This path consists of 8 interconnected factors that serve as guidelines for ethical and spiritual development. These are right understanding. Okay, I like it. Right intention. Okay, I'd be interested to hear how these are defined. Right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration. Okay, how do you define right in this case? Impermanence. Buddhism teaches that all things, including life itself, are impermanent and subject to change. No self. The concept that there is no permanent, unchanging self or soul. Rather, the individual is a constantly changing combination of physical and mental components. That's interesting. I'm curious how that meshes with reincarnation. Because if there is no consistent self, then if you are reincarnated, who is being reincarnated? And what is consistent between you and whatever you are in the next life? Karma, the law of cause and effect, where actions have consequences. Good actions lead to positive outcomes, while negative actions lead to suffering. In its basis form, that seems to be true, right? If you do bad things, if you steal from a store, you're probably going to get arrested. That's a bad thing. But in a more cosmic sense, that if you do something, even if there's no temporal consequence of you doing that thing, like you don't get caught, that there's some kind of a cosmic justice that sees to it that you get repaid in kind. Okay, I'm open to that. Meditation. Buddhism emphasizes the practice of meditation as a means to cultivate mindfulness, concentration, and insight. I would consider prayer a form of meditation, so I'm on board with meditation as a whole. Compassion. Buddhism encourages the cultivation of loving kindness and compassion toward all beings. I'm down with that. The middle way. The Buddha taught the middle way, which advocates for avoiding extremes and finding balance in life. Balance is good. The 3 jewels. Buddhists take refuge in the 3 jewels: the Buddha, the teachings, and the community of practitioners. Interesting. The 4 immeasurables. These are 4 virtues that Buddhists are encouraged to cultivate: loving kindness, compassion, empathetic joy, equanimity. These teachings form the foundation of Buddhist philosophy and practice. Okay, I'm going to ask, do Buddhists believe in reincarnation? Yes, they do. So the whole self thing doesn't really make sense. If there's no self, then what is being reincarnated? I don't get it. Now, one issue I've always had with Buddhism is that the Siddhartha Gautama, the Buddha, he had his teachings, he did his thing, he went around teaching what he discovered, and nothing was written down about that until about 500 years later. I might be mistaken in that, but let's find out. The Buddha's teachings were not written during his own lifetime. Instead, they were passed down orally by his disciples. The early Buddhist scriptures, known as the Pali Canon or Tipitaka, were eventually compiled and written down several centuries after the Buddha's death. Now that's kind of a problem for me. I don't know if I can believe the accounts of something that happened several centuries before it was written down. And you might say, hey, the resurrection, what about Jesus, all that stuff? Jesus didn't write anything in his lifetime, and everything that was written about him came afterwards as well. However, the things that came after Jesus's life, death, and resurrection, all of that was written down within a few decades of Jesus being around. And historians tend to agree that if something is written down at least 100 years, or at most rather 100 years after it was supposed to have occurred, that generally it can be considered reliable, or at least influences of legend haven't crept in. But if it's over 100 years, historians tend to think that it's probably full of legend and it's not as reliable. So the fact that this was written several centuries after, I've heard it said before that it was 500 years after, leads me to believe that a lot of legend probably crept in. So should I be giving a rating? I would say I didn't give a rating to the Bahai one. Let me give a rating. So Bahai, I rate it 2 out of 10 because that wishy-washy stuff really, it's like my pet peeve. It gets on my nerves. Buddhism, I'll give it a 6 out of 10. It's got some good teachings. I think I like its teachings against materialism. I like its teachings about being compassionate and being balanced and things like that. Meditation is good. I think empty meditation is probably pointless or not great, but I think meditating on something positive, the mysteries of the rosary, I think that kind of stuff could be really positive. So meditation in the way that I like meditation, I think it's got some generally good things. But the whole thing about it being written 500 years after the Buddha lived makes it less reliable. And the idea that we should not ever be attached to anything or have any desires, I think is not good. So we'll move on to the next one. All right, next we're going to look into Hinduism. What does Hinduism teach? Here are some key teachings. All right. Dharma refers to the moral and ethical duties and responsibilities that individuals are expected to follow according to their caste or stage of life and personal circumstances. It includes righteousness, duty, law, and order. Okay. Karma, the law of cause and effect. We already kind of heard about that in Buddhism. Samsara refers to the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth that individuals undergo. It is believed that one's actions or karma in past lives influence the circumstances of one's current life and future lives. Moksha is the ultimate goal of Hinduism, representing liberation from the cycle of samsara and the attainment of spiritual enlightenment. It is achieved through self-realization, knowledge, and union with the divine. Brahman is the ultimate reality or universal soul that permeates all existence. It is considered to be formless, infinite, and eternal. Brahman is both immanent and transcendent, manifesting in the universe and beyond. Atman refers to the individual soul or self, which is believed to be eternal and unchanging. Okay, so different from Buddhism. Atman is considered to be identical to Brahman in its true nature, and the realization of this unity is a central goal of spiritual practice. Okay. Yoga is a spiritual philosophical practice aimed at achieving union with the divine and self-realization. Deities. Hinduism is characterized by its diverse pantheon of deities representing different aspects of the divine. Some of the major gods and goddesses include Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, Lakshmi, Saraswati, and Durga. Okay. Ahimsa, or nonviolence, is a fundamental principle in Hinduism. It emphasizes compassion, kindness, and the avoidance of harm to all living beings. That sounds great. Couple of issues so far. Polytheism, kind of cringe to me. Not for me, I'm sorry. I think the biggest thing too, besides the polytheism, would be what is the evidence that this religion is true? Of course, GPT has to make sure that we know. It's important to note that the concept of truth can vary significantly depending on individual beliefs, perspectives, and interpretation. Okay, whatever that means. Many Hindus claim to have had a spiritual experience. Experience is a little too subjective. I've had experiences that affirm to me that Christianity is true, and the fact that these two experiences can affirm contradicting things shows that it's not a great source of truth. Their scriptures are revered as sources of divine knowledge and guidance. They may view the depth, wisdom, and insights contained in those texts as evidence of their divine origin. That's not very convincing to me, because I can also just say the same thing of my religious texts, and I can say the same thing of many non-religious texts. Miracles and divine interventions. I'm going to look up some miracles. Some miracles, particularly healing miracles, have been documented by medical professionals, though these are often not subject to rigorous scientific validation. Yeah, see, that's a problem. What I love about the Catholic Church and their approach to miracles is that they bring in doctors, they give them all of the documentation, and only if all of the doctors agree, actually there is no naturalistic explanation, that's when the Catholic Church considers it a miracle. None of this stuff where, somebody just says, hey, I went to this person and they prayed for me and I was healed. No, we need medical records, we need documentation. We're going to have professionals review all of this documentation. And if we can determine there is no possible explanation outside of this being miraculous, then we will recognize it as a miracle. Photographs and videos for contemporary figures like Satya, I don't know. There are photographs and videos that purport to show him performing miracles. However, skeptics often question the authenticity of such evidence, citing the possibility of trickery or illusion. So we're going to look at these videos of this person performing supposed miracles. Materializing sacred ash. Okay. Can we get a before? Like, his hand is closed here. I don't know, what is this, a napkin or what's in here? And then he does this. I need him to be like, here are my hands, I have nothing. No, I'm sorry, that's not gonna convince me. I already saw something in his hand. Look, there's already something there. You could literally see it in his hand before. Who sees this and is convinced? Like, you see something shiny in his hand, which just happens to be the same shininess and color as whatever this is supposed to be? No, come on. People are clapping too. This has got to be one of those things, like when you see those judo masters, that they can take you down by just going like this or something, and everybody just works it up so much in their mind that it actually works on them in some weird way. Hinduism, I'm sorry, I gotta give you 2.5, because at least you don't teach that all religions are the same. Like, you actually have your own unique beliefs, unlike the Bahai faith. But the evidence is just not there. The supposed miracle claims are just not convincing. So for contrast, let me show you how a miracle is accepted by the Catholic Church. Initial investigation. The process typically begins with a local bishop or diocese receiving reports of a miraculous event. The bishop may appoint a commission or committee to investigate the claim, consisting of experts in theology, medicine, science, and other relevant fields. Documentation and evidence gathering. This is the important part. The commission collects detailed documentation and evidence related to the alleged miracle, including eyewitness testimonies, medical records, scientific analysis, and any other relevant documentation. This phase may involve interviewing witnesses, examining physical evidence, and conducting medical examinations. Medical evaluation. If the miracle claim involves a healing, medical professionals are often consulted to evaluate the nature and severity of the illness or condition, the medical treatment received, and the likelihood of spontaneous recovery. This evaluation helps determine whether the healing can be attributed to natural or supernatural causes. Scientific analysis. In cases where scientific explanations are relevant, experts may conduct scientific analyses to assess the plausibility of natural explanations and rule out fraud or manipulation. This may involve analyzing physical evidence, conducting experiments, or consulting relevant scientific literature. Theological assessment. The Commission also considers the theological implications of the alleged miracle, examining whether it is consistent with Catholic doctrine and teachings. Peer review and consultation. The Commission's findings and conclusions are typically subjected to peer review by other experts in the relevant fields, both within and outside the Catholic Church. Consultation with theologians, scientists, and other experts help ensure the thoroughness and credibility of the investigation. Approval by church authorities. Church authorities review the evidence and make a determination for the authenticity of the miracle claim. Then it's officially recognized. So it goes through a lot of steps before being recognized by the Catholic Church as a authentic miracle. Maybe I'll do a different video on miracles and the evidence for them, because I think that's a very interesting area that not a lot of people talk about, because I feel like there's a stigma around that, right? Where people don't want to sound crazy. Like, oh, you still believe in miracles? Really? But also people will say things like, if God is real, why aren't there any miracles nowadays? And then you say, no, there are miracles now. And they go, oh, so you're a crazy person. No, there are miracles now. They're highly evidential. And I'll make another video going into some of my favorite ones. But anyways, that's the end of the video. What did you think of my ratings of these religions? Would you rate them the same, or would you rate them differently? Why not? Thank you so much for watching. Go ahead and give this video a like, share it with somebody who you think would find it entertaining or interesting, and subscribe here on YouTube. Also check out the links in the description for my locals and TikTok pages. And until I see you next time, God bless.